I just opened up the locker on SketchUp, and we want to check a couple things before we import it to actually be cut out on the CNC router. First thing I want to do is zoom out and make sure I don't have all this extra stuff, because if I export it right now, all of this is going to come through. So I know that this is an exact copy of this. I use it for an exploded view for your packet, but I'm just going to erase that. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to try to get all these dimensions off of here, and if you've still got the guy that shows up, get rid of the guy, because he'll come in. And as much as a nice guy as he looks, we really don't need a big wooden model of a guy that we're cutting out. So we're just getting rid of all those dimensions. I'm going to save it, purge everything. That just gets rid of all the extra little stuff. And then I'm going to come here and say download SKP. That's a SketchUp file. Now this goes to your downloads. School's been goofy, and the P drive, where we used to be able to save things and always get to them, has disappeared. So what I would suggest doing when that's downloaded is coming to your Google Drive. So however you get to your Google Drive, you can sign into your email, you can go to My Apps, sign into the G Suite, but I would definitely save this. So this class is called Advanced Manufacturing, and I'm going to say New File Upload and get that Locker file saved somewhere that's not just on the laptop computer, because if you forget to save it or something weird happens, it's gone. So this way we know it's always in our Google Drive. Now I'm going to come to V-carve. V-carve is this blue icon. Let me see. I'll show you on my desktop. On your desktop, it should be right here, V-carve 11.5. I'm going to open that up, and we're going to create a new file so that we can organize this thing. So I'm going to say create a new file, and we got to punch in the parameters. Now we're going to cheat a little bit on this drawing. We're actually going to be cutting this out of a 5-foot wide piece of melamine. 5 feet won't fit on the router, but we're going to leave it 50 inches wide to give us a little bit of extra space. And we're going to say it's 96 inches tall and 3/4 of an inch thick. We want to make sure we're on machine bed in bottom left corner, and then hit OK. So this is the blank CNC router sheet. If I was going to set that sheet of melamine down that we're going to make this out of, this is what it would look like. Now I need to import that SketchUp file. So I'm going to say import vectors. Mine's in my downloads. I also saved it on my Google Drive if I want to get there. I don't think this icon pops up for you, so you would have to go into your Google Drive and then download it to your downloads if that was a possibility. In other words, if you need to get it from your Google Drive, you can come to your Google Drive, say download, and you'll see that little icon pop up, and it will download to your computer. Then you can always go to downloads and find that. Say open. Now some of the stuff is really important. Auto orientate, largest faces up, that's great. Have that checked. Create circles for polygons. SketchUp actually doesn't do circles, it does really small line segments. So we want, when anything with a circle is brought in, we want V-carve to replace that with a circle. And we want to make sure this box is unchecked. Otherwise everything else should look exactly how it does now. And we'll say OK. Now you'll see that your stuff will come in and it may look different than mine, but in the back of your mind we should be thinking we want to get 2 of these sheets on the page. So we want to try to get this as narrow as possible, just using up 1/2 of the sheet so we can cut somebody else's out. And actually I am going to cut somebody else's out with yours. So whoever, we can shift somebody's left or somebody's right, it doesn't make a big difference, but 2 of you should be able to get cut out on this one sheet. You'll notice if I click somewhere that's not on the drawing, everything deselects. But every time I click on a part, the whole part is selected. That's okay for now, but I want to orientate these a little nicer. So this is going to be my top. If I hit Control 9, it rotates 45 degrees, and you'll see that it's a little bit narrower than it is wide. And we want to pop that going straight up. Control 9, that will make those a little bit narrower. And you'll see why in just a second. Control 9. Control 9. All I'm trying to do, since this is melamine, the grain direction doesn't matter. Now check this out. If I do this, and you don't have to do it, I'm going to Control C and Control V. If I do that, it's close, but I can fit another sheet of parts on here so that when we cut it out, we're not quite as wasteful with our parts. So just know that that's what our goal is. You don't have to do that, but now I can get all of the parts on the sheet. I'm just going to get rid of that because we're not going to be doing 2 parts. So I'm just hitting Control Z to undo what I did. Now we're back to having these things nicely orientated for us to play with. What we need to do now is make things individual so I can control them individually. What that means is right now that part is all grouped together, so I can't just select the holes or the line bores to get cut out. So I select it first, turn it pink, then I right click and say ungroup object back to original layer. And I'll do that on this one too because there's a lot of stuff that we have to do. So now I can click just a specific hole and have that done. When we're cutting something out on the CNC router, we want to go from the inside to the outside. So the very last step is to cut the outside holes. We want to cut the inside holes first. And we're going to do the smallest holes to the biggest holes. So I'm going to draw a line, a box around, and you can faintly see how all those are pink. I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'll do the same thing over here. We want to drill those out. And let's see if I can make this so you can see it a little better. With the toolpath tab over here, that's going to be a drilling toolpath. Cut depth is 3/8 of an inch. That's great. Let's select the tool. Is the 5mm bit. Drill 5mm. If you don't have a 5mm bit, what we can do is come up here and add one. So we hit the plus. We edit the name of it. We're going to call it a 5mm drill bit. Okay, and then we'll just call it line. The tool type is a drill bit. It's 5mm wide, 90 is fine, it's actually flat. The angles, yeah, we'll just call it a 90, that's okay. Number of flutes is 2, create settings. The maximum path depth, that means how deep it can drill, is almost always just the diameter, and we want to change that to be a little bit deeper. I'm just going to say 0.7, it's in millimeters, so if we're going to, that's about 19mm, we'll say it's 19mm. Spindle speed, plunge rate, and this is in tool number 2, and then I hit apply, and that's there. So I selected that bit if it wasn't already there. Now we got to talk through some of these others. We want to retract above the pass of the previous pass, and we want it to retract up 2 inches. So that means it's got to drill down a little bit and then come up, drill down a little bit further. That helps clear out all the wood chips and debris inside the hole so the bit will last longer. Dwell at the bottom of the hole for a very short amount of time. Drill 1 is fine, and hit calculate. Okay, so that red line is where it moves. If I really wanted to get a preview of what this looked like, I could say preview all tool paths, and we see that there's holes drilled there, but they're not going all the way through. That's perfect. Next step. The thing about a drilling tool path is it references the center of the hole, so it really doesn't matter how big the hole is. It's going to find the center of it and drill the hole. So if those holes were a 1/4 inch, even if those holes were an inch in diameter on the drawing, it's still just going to use the tool bit that we selected and have it drill there. So if your holes are the wrong size, it's not that big a deal. Next thing we're going to do is these holes. Now these holes are not going to get cut with a drill bit. They are going to get cut with an end mill because they're a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper, and I don't have a drill bit that size. So I'm holding down Shift, and I selected, I got to make sure I select the right things, not that outside line. If I need to zoom in, I can a little bit. Now the tool path that I want is this thing right here called a pocket tool path. So I click the pocket tool path, I'm going to remove that bit and select the one that I want. and I want a 1/4 inch end mill. 1/4 inch end mill is in tool number 4. That's the right diameter, the right number of flutes. Spindle speed is 18,000. All of those things are just fine. I'm going to say apply so it saves those changes and hit select. A couple things over here I can look at is 3 passes. Now, I'm going to edit that, and I'm going to say let's do it in 2. We want those holes to be 1/2 inch deep, and we'll ramp the plunge moves, which means it's going to kind of go in a corkscrew because it doesn't have a cutter on the end of it like a drill bit does. Now, if we were going to do tons and tons of these, I'd buy a drill bit with a flat bottom that was the diameter of those holes, which was 3/8 inch, but we're not going to do that for now. So ramp plunge moves 1 inch, and we're going to call this dowel holes, and hit calculate. Now, if again we want to preview visible tool paths, we can see we've got these holes here now, and we can come back here, and we now are going to do our rabbit. So when I click on this line, I see my rabbit selected. Sometimes there's extra lines in there, but I want to use this Edit Objects tool, and I want to make my rabbit a little bit longer. And the reason I do that is I'm using a circular cutter, and if I don't make the rabbit a little bit longer, it'll leave a little curve at the end of my rabbit, and that is no bueno. Okay, now I want to select both of them, so I'm going to hold down Shift, click on the other one. It's a pocket tool path. We want this to be 0.375 deep, 3/8 inch. It's a 3/4 inch piece of material. We're going halfway through it. I'm going to use my 3/8 end mill, 0.375, and I actually lie to it and I tell it that's a little bit skinnier than it is, so it makes everything just a little bit bigger. All these other things can stay the same. That's in tool number 1. Select. Ramp the plunge moves 1 inch. We're going to call it rabbit. And calculate. Again, if I want to preview all, I can see that now I've got rabbits in there, and none of the stuff is cutting all the way through yet. And now I'm on to the last step. And now this last step, I'm going to just make sure we're lined up just right. A little bit of space. I'm actually going to draw a box around all of this. I'm going to move it all up just a hair because I want to have a little more space from the bottom. So it's pretty straightforward. The next step, I'm just going to zoomed in by using the scroll wheel on my mouse. I want to make sure I get all of the outside lines. Make sure that that pink line goes on the outside of your side. Okay. Now I come up here to tool paths, and we want to do a profile tool path. This means that the router bit is going to follow the line, and we want to cut all the way through. So 0.755, we're going to go 5 thousandths deeper. Select the bit. It's that same 3/8 end mill. Make sure it's in tool 1. Oopsie daisy. I goofed up there. What did I do? Alright, I think we got it fixed. All that stuff can say there. I select it, and of course it disappears on me. We want to be on the outside of the line. So this is the line. We want the router bit to be on the outside, not on top of or not inside of, because we would have too small of a part then. Do not separate. Add a tab. So this is what we're going to do to keep our parts from moving. We're going to add tabs that are 1/2 inch by 0.1 inch. I'm going to say edit tabs, and I'm going to put tabs on the end of each of these pieces. And what this is going to do is leave a little bit of wood that's real thin, but it's going to help my board. Oops. If I get it in the wrong spot, that's fine. I can just click on it again. This is going to keep my boards from moving around as they're getting cut out on the router. One of the things that I get concerned about when we're running pieces so close, and you see this one's pretty close to the end, but we'll put one there anyhow. I can close this. So those are going to be little tiny tabs that get left on, and I just did it on the ends of my board. And you know what? Just to be safe, edit passes, I am going to say set the last pass thickness to 0.625, which is a 1/16 of an inch. So it's actually going to do 2 passes. It's going to do most of the work on the first pass and then come around and do a really light pass on the second. That just helps hold things in place while they're getting cut out. My tabs are still there. Add a ramp of 1 inch to these parts, and I'll calculate it. I'll say okay, because we're going to cut through. I can even come over here, preview all tool paths, and we'll see now that there's these little tabs that get left in place, and I'm hoping that those little tabs will be good enough to help these pieces from moving around when they're getting cut out. Okay, now you're done. I would like to see this file, so I would certainly come up here and go File, Save As. And if you need to save it in the desktop, you can, but we'll call this Locker Complete. And if you have this Google Drive option, that's great. Otherwise, I would save it in Downloads, then come back here to your Google Drive, and I would say File, Upload. Oh, I said Folder Upload. Locker Complete. And now this will be in my Advanced Manufacturing folder anytime I need to get it. To turn it in, you'll go back to Canvas, and the CNC file drop right here. Mine looks different than yours, but in that CNC file drop, you'll be able to upload a file. So you will click Upload, and then you'll go find that file and upload it here. I want to look through the file before we actually cut it out.